Hi there fabric jugglers, it's Babs here from Fiery Phoenix, and I'm hoping that the summer holidays haven't left you exhausted and drained and that you've had a fabulous time with your family and friends over the summer months, and hopefully it has been sunnier more than it's been raining. I think it's about 50-50 here, but either way, we've had a fabulous time and I hope you guys have as well. Today's tutorial is all about tension, and this isn't the tension headache that you get after 6 weeks of holiday time with your family and your little ones. This is all about the tension between the top thread and the bottom thread on your sewing machine. The way that stitches are formed, a thread comes from the top down into the centre of 2 layers of fabric, and it is then met with some bobbin thread that's coming up the other way, and the two should meet and loop in between the 2 layers of fabric. I've got some graphics which I'll put up here or up here which will demonstrate that more clearly than my hands doing this, which probably isn't very helpful. And what you need to achieve when you are sewing is a tension that matches the top thread with the bottom thread, so that they do meet in the middle, so that they meet nicely in the middle, and neither one is pulled up or pulled down. Now, if you're not sure whether your upper tension or lower tension is too high, again, I've got some graphics which will help to explain that, but the side that you can see the loops, that's the side where the tension is too high, because that thread is taut. It's so tight that the bottom or the top can't pull the thread to the centre of the 2 layers of fabric. So if you can see loops on the top, it means that the top thread is much tighter. It's got a much higher tension than the bobbin thread. If you see loops along the bottom of your fabric, it means that your bobbin tension is significantly higher than your top tension. And what you're looking for is a happy medium between the two, where rather than the loops being pulled to the top or pulled to the bottom, they're hidden between the 2 layers of fabric. And the way that this is managed or controlled is by adjusting the tension discs and the bobbin tension. So we'll put a graphic around somewhere, but the tension dial for the top of the machine, basically the higher that number is, the greater the pressure between those two plates. So they're squeezing on that thread with more tension, with more pressure, which makes it harder for you to pull that thread through. And as it's harder for you to pull that thread through, it pulls up against the tension from the bottom. So it is far easier and simpler for you to adjust the tension from the top with your tension wheel than it is to start messing around with screwdrivers and changing the tension on your bobbin. And you must always make sure that when you're sewing, the thread actually is threaded into your machine correctly and it is actually going through the tension discs. If you're not sure exactly where your tension discs are, have a good look through your user manual, your user guide, and that will show you where the tension discs are. I'll put a picture up again of what tension discs actually look like, although with most modern machines they're generally hidden inside the workings of your sewing machine, so they're not as obvious as they used to be on old-fashioned machines. So it's not as obvious as saying, okay, I'm just going to thread this through the actual tension disc. You follow the threading guide and your thread will go through. But make sure that you haven't missed it off a hook at the top or something lower down, so that thread is forced through those tension discs. Also make sure that you've put the presser foot down, so you've lowered the foot down, because there is no tension applied to those discs until that presser foot is lowered. Otherwise your machine will just be freewheeling, and it's perfectly capable on a significant number of machines for you to sew without having the presser foot down, but obviously you're going to be messing up tension left, right and centre. You can of course adjust the tension of the bobbin if everything else isn't making any difference whatsoever. At the end of this I'll have a little checklist of steps that you can go through. And the last is absolutely adjust your bobbin tension. I do have a separate video which I'll put a link to somewhere, and also put a link down below on how to adjust the bobbin tension. And a simple way to remember is turn the screw righty tighty and lefty loosey. So that will tighten or loosen your tension. With a very grown up little rhymes there. But again, that really should be a last resort, adjusting your bobbin tension can be a major headache for people. So so don't leap straight to that conclusion. In terms of my little checklist, I'll just drag that over so I go through my checklist in the right order. There's basically 4 steps that I run through, and I need to remind myself because there are times I just leap through to something else and it's, you know, I just need to replace my needle. And there I am messing about with tensions and testing swatches, all sorts, left, right and centre, which is no good to anybody. So the 4 steps are: 1, check your needle. Check that you've threaded your needle. Check that needle's been inserted correctly. Check that it's the correct needle for the fabrics that you're working with. And if you think all of those 3 are correct, take that needle out and replace it with a new one and try that again. Step number 2 is make sure that your sewing machine is threaded correctly. So pull the thread out, but don't pull it out the top. Cut it off at the top, pull it out at the bottom, and then thread it back through. If you pull it back the wrong way, which is very tempting to do, you can be furring up and causing all sorts of problems within your machine. So it's always recommended that you snip it off the top, pull that thread through. Once you've raised the presser foot so that it's released all the tension, then you pull it through and then you rethread. Step 3, make sure that you are checking your top tension. You are either increasing the top tension if the loops are on the bottom, or if the loops are showing on the top, you reduce the tension at the top. And before you start sewing your test pieces, make sure that that presser foot is down so that that tension change is being applied to your scrap fabric that you're working with. And then if nothing else has worked, then go through and follow the video on how to adjust the bobbin tension. And with those 4 steps, and always remembering to make sure that your presser foot is down for each and every one of those tests that you do, then that should sort out all of your tension problems. If it hasn't, give me a shout. Send me some photographs, give me some examples of what you're doing, and I will do my very best to help you. Come along to the Starting to Sew group. I'll put a link down underneath as well, and then you'll be able to get tons of advice there. If you've got some suggestions for things to remember or think of that I haven't covered here, then please put that in the comments so that we can all learn together. And I think that's about it for tension, other than just sit back, have a cup of tea, have a cup of coffee, relax. If you need to, walk away and come back to it tomorrow, because sometimes the tension is actually in ourselves. We are so stressed because we think that we've got a deadline to meet, or we've got children in the background, or we've got a cat that's jumping all over our workplace, all over our work surface, or we've got somebody who wants their dinner instead of us finishing off this last little piece. And so our tension then becomes sewing machine tension because we're rushing and we're forgetting things and we're not checking things properly. So that is always a very sensible move, is to just sit back, take a breath, and then come back to it afterwards. Hopefully this will have helped you. And if so, give it a thumbs up, have a look around the rest of the channel. I'd love it if you'd subscribe, but you know, it's not compulsory. It's up to you guys if you think this is useful. I upload new tutorials on Tuesdays and Thursdays, and hopefully I shall see you around again. Bye for now.